Welcome to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
This episode is brought to you by Latin Excellence. Visit latinexcellence.com. That's Latinx, CELLENCE.com or latinxmovement.com to learn more and shop our merchandise. You are excellence. Hello and welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth. My name is Luis and I'm your host. I'm fresh off of tax season, so thank you all for bearing with me as I finished out the last couple of weeks and now I'm back. So today I wanted to talk to you about sunk cost fallacy and also tell you what it is, how it affects you, and how you can avoid it to make better decisions in the future. So let me ask you something. Have you ever continued to do something that wasn't necessarily the best decision for you, but you continue to do it anyway, and the only reason for that is because of the either time, effort, money, or other resources that you have spent in it? Probably yes, right? I know I have. I was thinking about the past times I've moved. Usually I go and clean out my closet, and there's always a ton of clothes that I never wear. But I always tell myself that I will wear them going forward because in my mind, I'm thinking, I really don't want to waste this, right? I spent money on them a while back. Some of them could have sentimental value as well. And I'm like, I'm going to wear them, And a lot of times I notice that by the time the next move comes, those clothes are still there, whether it's in a drawer or the closet, and I have not worn them. Right. So I don't know if that's ever happened to you, something similar. So it's not all necessarily about money. I'm going to tell you about how this affects your money decisions, investments and whatnot. But a lot of times it's general life decisions. It could be anything, it could be like continuing to pay for a service that you no longer enjoy. This could be a subscription. This could be a gym membership. This could be a relationship. Have you ever stayed in a relationship only because of how long you've been in the relationship? So, well, we've been together X amount of time, or we spend so much time together already. I've invested so much emotional capital in this, right? So the problem with that is, if you've ever been subject to that, then you have been subject to the sunk cost fallacy. So let me tell you what a sunk cost is. It's basically something known in economics as an investment that you cannot recuperate. A cost, doesn't necessarily need to be money, but it's basically when you commit to continue to do something, continue to do a behavior because of previously invested resources. That's the fallacy part of it. So the sunk cost part is just money that you spend that you're not going to recover. So if you look it up online, you might see examples like if you bought tickets to a movie, for example, and then it's raining and you're sick and maybe you shouldn't go out. And if you still do just because you feel like you'll be wasting that, then you'll be like, well, I already paid the money, I might as well go type of thing. But in reality, the fallacy is that a sunk cost should not be taken into consideration when you're making the future decisions. Like when you hear the term like crying over spilled milk, it's basically the concept. It's like, listen, it's true. You already did spend the money, the time, the effort, the resources, the emotional capital, but that really should no longer play a factor into your future decision about anything going forward, whether it's a relationship or an investment, a job, a career, anything like that. Now, why do we fall subject and prey to this sunk cost fallacy? A lot of the times is because, number one, a lot of us, it might be ego. Like we just straight up don't want to be wrong. Maybe we don't want to hear it from somebody else that says, hey, I told you so. And maybe we don't want to let ourselves down either, because we have a tendency to commit to things because that's just how we are internally, right? So you would feel like a failure if you don't follow through. But unfortunately, that feeling sometimes could help us in a lot of ways. But unfortunately, a lot of the times it actually makes it worse for us because it lets us make bad decisions because you're continuing to throw good energy and good money after bad just because, well, I've already come this far. Not realizing, yes, you've come this far, but in reality, this is not going to get you anywhere else going forward. So why don't you put a stop to it now? Acknowledge that it was a bad decision, learn from it, so not to repeat it again, and then create an alternative and follow a different path. Easier said than done, believe me. I have plenty of clothes in my closet to prove it. So I wanted to just give you a few examples of things that a lot of us do on a day-to-day basis that basically continue to make irrational decisions as a result. So paying for a service you no longer need. That could be a subscription, gym membership, anything like that, right? I've known people who have made decisions to say, continue to do a business or a job that they don't really enjoy, only because they spent already all that time and effort into getting that particular career or job. And they're not happy, but it's like, hey, I already spent so many years trying to do this and now I'm here, I might as well continue. But it's not really healthy, right? What about even at work, like sticking to a project or an activity? Like if you're a business owner, for example, sometimes, there might be a service offering you had, an idea you had at the time, or something you invested money in, an expense to run that business, or even on the individual level. Maybe you bought a particular stock that just didn't do well and probably will not go to do well in the future either. But somehow you feel like you've already committed to this and you just continue to buy more of it. Also, this affects us in ways that involve not making a decision. For example, say your 401k at work, the job offers you a matching contribution and you haven't done it for 2 years. Sometimes, because of the fact that we haven't done something in a while, continues to reinforce the reason as to not to do it in going forward. Says, oh, no, I've never done it. No, I've never really looked into it. So I just kind of do my own thing, And in reality, it's like, well, you might be missing out on something as a result of not making that decision. So it could kind of go both ways, right? And then you can see how this could play into the money aspect of things, because a lot of the times we might put money after something that we thought was a good idea at the time, and now it no longer is. And this is why it's so important for you to have like somebody in your life, whether it's a friend or somebody that could be truly impartial, because a key reason why we do this is because of the emotions that come up. A lot of the times we may not want to feel guilty, for example, because, I said I was going to commit to this and now I'm not going to anymore because it turned out to be a bad idea. So those feelings of feeling guilt come up. It could be embarrassment. You might have made a decision, you might have announced it to people that and maybe you think, well, now I'm going to let those people down because I decided to do this particular thing, even though it's no longer helping me out, and I want you to be conscious about this, because we do this sometimes, like even on the weekend, you might start watching a movie and the movie, like you're 20 minutes into it and it's really boring. And then you're like, well, I already spent 20 minutes watching this, I may as well finish it. But you know what? That's neither here nor there if you think about it. Yes, you spent 20 minutes looking at it. So does that mean you should sacrifice the next hour of your time because you've already invested 20 minutes? You see what I mean? So like an hour going forward lost in something that you don't want to watch is a lot worse than 20 minutes you did miss, right? So that's the type of behavior that sometimes, it might not be a huge deal, right? You watch the movie, you end up not liking it, but that particular type of mindset could then translate into bigger decisions in life. Staying in a relationship you don't want to be in, staying in school, choosing a major that you might not be happy with, or a job that you really hate, but you really worked hard to get it. Now you have it and it's not what you thought, right? So things like that. So I want you to be conscious of that, because this can have very long-term impact in your life, especially when it comes to money, because sometimes you might have put money, even like an investment, for example. You might have bought a particular thing. You might have bought into a particular business. You might have started your own business and it's not working out, and obviously things are rough, and it doesn't mean that you should stop at the first sign of adversity. But there is a time when truly, and this is one of the exercises that I want to go over with you is, how do you know? What are some of the questions you can ask yourself to come to this place where you're like, all right, this is really not a good idea, right? So how do we avoid this sunk cost fallacy? Think about if you started looking at it without the emotion part of it. And one way of doing this, I find that is helpful, is thinking about it as if it was another person, because it's very hard to see sometimes for our own selves. So think about it. If somebody else was continuing to do the one thing that you're doing that you feel like perhaps you should no longer do, how would you advise them? Would you tell them to continue to be? It's a lot easier for us to kind of see it as an impartial third party when it's somebody else, because maybe our emotions are not involved. And it's easier for us to say, oh, you really shouldn't continue to do this, even though you spent X amount of money at the beginning, right? So imagine that was that. Also, think about yourself. Like, imagine if someone tells you to cut two things right now from, say, your budget. What are two things that you would no longer continue to do if you had to, if it's just an absolute must? Think about it carefully. What would happen? Like, what are the kinds of feelings that come about if you say, I really should stop this? Are you feeling any type of negative feeling? Is there anger coming up? Is there guilt? Is there shame? Is there sadness? And then you want to think about why that is. And then you might realize that it's just because your emotions are taking over in something that you set out to do, and you don't want to let people down or let yourself down, right? But what I want you to do going forward is to not take into account the sunk cost anymore. Don't cry over that spilled milk. Don't throw good money after bad money, good resources after bad resources. Think about it going forward. Okay, you know what? Think about this example. Like, I've gone to an all-you-can-eat buffet, and I've had the mindset of like, well, I paid X amount to get in here. I might as well eat all I can eat, right? And that's kind of like the mindset. Like, I want to get my money's worth. And that's like the example about the movie ticket. If you're sick and you're home and it's raining, and you know what? Yes, you did buy the movie ticket. It's already gone, right? You paid the $20, whatever it was. It doesn't matter in your decision to do a better decision for you going forward. Maybe you should stay home and not subject yourself to possibly getting sicker, right? So that's how I just start thinking about it going forward. Think about it in terms of your overall outcome. Another economic term is opportunity cost, which is what are you giving up by continuing to go down the path that you're going? Think about it that way too, because there is a cost. Sometimes a lot of us have a greater fear of missing out on something we already have, as opposed to giving up something that we haven't attained just yet, right? And that's why we tend to hold on so tight to it. There's an example too, like some people that work for certain companies and they get like their company stock that they buy. A lot of the times people have a very high concentration of that one stock. And it could be either from an employer or something that you just bought in the past. And yeah, you know what? You bought it at XYZ and then it went down, and it's kept going down, and you just holding out like, no, this was the right decision. I bought this. I believe in this company, right? And sometimes, it's not coming back, and you've just been taking losses after losses. So it's very important to have, whether it's technology or people that you can count on, to remove the emotional aspect for you, to kind of help you see, you've already lost XYZ. What would be the outcome if you continue to go down this path? Does it make sense to continue to do this just because you spend X amount of money or time or emotional capital in it? If the answer is no, then, just learn from it. Don't feel bad about it. Obviously, none of us wants to waste money or resources, but it's a lot worse to continue to do something that is not in your best interest just because you spend time and resources doing it in the first place, right? So think about, what are some of the things in your life right now? Are there any things in your life right now that you're kind of continuing to do that don't serve you? And you can start small just to kind of see how you've fallen into this trap, as they call it, right? Think about, like in my example, I know that when I move again, I'm sure I'm going to find a whole bunch of clothes that I swore I would wear. But when I think about it, a good exercise that I saw was, if I were to lose that particular sweater or t-shirt or whatever, would I go out and buy it again? And, most of the time the answer is no. I'm like, no, I wouldn't buy that t-shirt again. Then why am I holding into it now? Right. Taking up space. So I could give it to somebody else, right? I can just donate it or something, and somebody that's actually going to make use of it instead of just sitting there in my closet. So think about it from that standpoint. Are you in a job that you just absolutely hate, and the only reason you're there is for the money, right? If there's an opportunity going forward, you can start thinking about is there a way to make this job better? Is there a way to continue to work for the same company in a different role, different capacity? Can I be part of a different team? Anything like that. If not, maybe you can reallocate your time and resources to eventually making a transition to something else, because your health, both physical, mental, and also your money, is going to thank you for it later, because you're going to be doing decisions that are going to be more in your best interest, and you become happier as a result. So think about it that way. Think small. There are things in my budget that I should be canceling right now. Certain subscriptions that I just never use, but they just every single month or whatever, they're taking money out. And then you keep them because, hey, I've already spent this much on it, I might as well keep it. Or are you using something because of the money you spent on it? And you're just like, well, I might as well use it because I spent X, Y, Z on it. But in reality, it's not something that you enjoy doing, right? So see if you can have at least an accountability partner or a method that you can say, okay, I'm going to set up this rule for me. If it's a stock, for example, that just lost a ton of money on you for years over a year, and you really know that you should get rid of it, you can say, all right, when it hits this one particular price, I'm just going to get rid of it, period, regardless of whatever. Like, that's it, just on this day. So make yourself those kinds of games, because you need to figure out a way to remove the emotion from it. And that's also when the accountability partners help with it as well. And listen, sometimes it works in your benefit too. If you pay for a gym membership that you haven't been using, and you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to start going to the gym because I am paying for it, then that's perfect, But think about it this way, like, you have to make that decision. It's either discontinue it or then actually use it, right? Because you can't continue just like pay for something or continue to add to something because of the decision you did in the past, So if it's like the gym membership and you're not using it, then by all means, make the time and go to the gym, and you'll be much better for it. Or say, you know what, this ain't it for me. This is not the gym. I'm just going to cancel the subscription, and maybe I'll download some workouts at home, whatever it is that works for you. But think about it in those aspects, right? Try to remove emotion from it. Because otherwise you just throwing good resources after bad in order to avoid a negative emotion within yourself. So I hope that, this at least gets you thinking about some of the decisions you've made in the past, especially money ones too, because a lot of the times we just tend to hold on to things because of the amount of money we spend. It could have even been a car. Maybe you bought a car that you really liked and you have a high payment, and now it's like, hey, I made the decision. You know what? If it no longer suits you, no longer fits your budget, you no longer need it, for example, let's say you're working from home because of the pandemic, maybe you don't drive as much, or whatever the reason might be, don't hesitate to correct a wrong. Even if that means you might feel initially some sort of regret, because over the long term, I think you're going to feel even worse if you continue to do something that doesn't suit you now. So try to remove those emotions and think about what you're giving up going forward, as opposed to the amount of money and time and resources you've already spent on that one thing. All right. So I hope that this helps in some way, at least start framing your way of thinking about the sunk cost fallacy. If you like to share anything that you're going to stop doing, in my case, I'm definitely getting rid of some clothes in my closet the next time I move. So hold me to that. If you want to share anything that you'll be doing going forward or stop doing, send me an email, luis@onmywaytowealth.com. And thank you for tuning in. And just stay tuned for the next set of episodes coming out. Look forward to just bringing out new content. If you have any ideas or anything that you'd like for me to speak about, or anyone that you'd like to introduce me to that you think would be a great guest, by all means, always feel free to reach out. Luis@onmywaytowealth.com. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.